Hi, my name is Peggy O'Connor. When I first started looking into what to do for my paper, Information and Organization, I thought about doing the issue of genreification. Our local library, they decided to reorganize their picture books by genre, and I didn't like it. I was looking for an author. I couldn't find what I needed. The librarians couldn't find what I needed. So it was an issue that was close to my heart, and I thought it was good. Information and organization. How do we organize things? But as I did my research, as I read papers and found out more about this, my title changed a little bit. And here we go. Is the Dewey Decimal Classification still a valid tool in libraries of today? Melville Dewey came up with this system in 1876. He was working at the Amherst College and was in charge of putting books away and was frustrated with the shelf organization. It's important to realize that at this time, no one under the age of 14 was using libraries. Dewey's intended audience at this time was adult, white, Christian male. The Dewey Decimal System has 10 main subject groups, and in each group there are 10 subheadings per group, which gives you 100 groups. These are represented by numbers and decimals. Here are some examples of Dewey Decimal charts that are used in libraries and schools. Here are some of the more kid-friendly ones. There are definite problems with Dewey. It doesn't represent the 21st century technology in society of today. It has been adapted and changed through the time, but still, it was designed in 1876. One of the articles I read talked about a high school teacher who was looking for books on sexuality to discuss with her students. And she said to the librarian, if a kid is in these stacks and looking for what I'm looking for, they're going to find their books next to books on slavery and incest. And what kind of message does that send to them? The Dewey is difficult for young children to navigate. Decimals are not taught to fourth grade. Currently, I know as teaching a first grade classroom that numbers into the hundreds, they don't recognize them. They can't tell the difference between numbers that are close. So that's difficult for them to understand. The categories of Dewey are difficult to explain. The category in the 600s, technology, when you're teaching your students that, you will have to be able to tell them why pets, gardening, and cooking would be under that heading. They don't see the connection. Another issue that is what I found was that a lot of books are lost in Dewey that might be of interest to patrons. There was one library that did a survey and they were able to track where their patrons went, and many didn't go into the nonfiction sections of their library. Other librarians who are cataloging say, you know, here's a really interesting book, but I know that when I put it in its section in Dewey, people won't be using it. Here's some pictures to illustrate that point. Here's a children's collection. If children wanted to find out more about horses or learn about horses, they'd have to be browsing and finding books from the 500s to the high 700s. And the adult collection, the 300s, are those social sciences. And you can see the list of categories that are included there. They don't necessarily go together, but that's where they fit with Dewey. In 2009, Barbara Pfister sent a survey to librarians. It was all online. Over 100 librarians responded. And she asked what the librarians felt about Dewey and what their impressions were of their patrons' feelings on Dewey. And this is what she came up with or discovered through that survey. The numbers are pretty dramatic. Almost half felt that it could be vastly improved. And then a small percentage, only 3.2, thinks it's just right the way it is. When we look at the patrons' feelings towards Dewey, again, dramatic numbers. Over half have trouble understanding the catalog. 66.3% are intimidated by the system, don't understand it very well. Librarians looking for something different tend to go towards this model, the BISAC model, the Book Industry Standards and Communications. This is the model. It's known as the bookstore model. It's what Amazon and Barnes and Noble uses. There's 52 headings, but it's not just the way the books are organized. It's the whole environment of this model that people are looking at. The cafes, the reading nooks, having those kiosks that draw the eye. This is seen as a very user-friendly model, but librarians who are against it worry that this is a profit-based model, and that's not what a library is geared towards. Here's some pictures of our local Barnes & Noble. Marshall Shore in the Maricopa County Libraries of Arizona was asked to design a new library building. They were building a new one and they said, what do you want to do? Marshall talked a lot about how patrons had trouble finding books using Dewey. So he used the bicycle model and redesigned this new building. They had great success and are now going to change all 18 libraries in their county using this model. This happened in 2007. In 2008 in Illinois, the two librarians of the public library there, after hearing about the success of the Arizona model, decided to do the same. They had what they called a free Dewey blog where patrons could follow along as they redesigned the library, talked about how they would change it. They used what they called taxonomies. They used a lot of signage, which you see in the bookstore model, and they relabeled using the words rather than numbers. The Rangeview Library District in Colorado, this happened in 2009. They used what they called the word think method, where they relabeled the book spines with words instead of numbers. With this relabeling, they actually came up with a whole new brand for the whole library district. They now call it Anything, and it was a whole new big community change with the community gardens. They have a digital creation lab that draws lots of children into the libraries, and it really made a whole change in this district. Not just with the books, but how they use that space. Another public library in 2009 in Connecticut, Kate Sheehan, she used what they called a Dewey bookstore mashup. They put them together and designed glades. They would take what they felt patrons were really looking for and make a glade like home. You can see on the label they used home, but they didn't get rid of all the Dewey. But they have the cooking and the gardening, and they put all those things together. They also relabeled their children's section. They called it the first 5 years. And they put things into category. Here's all their books on transportation or nature and things like that. And you can see how they relabeled with words and numbers. This is a school library in New York City. The 4 librarians there found that they were spending a lot of time helping kids find books. Where do I find this? Where do I find that? And they said, this isn't working. They came up with their system. They called it the Metis. They have a website where you can download their icons and see what they did. They used whole language and visual cues, much more developmentally appropriate for students. This was in 2012. 5 libraries I've talked about made big changes. The problem is there's not a lot of research to say this is the way to go for long term. They've all had a lot of positive feedback, are going to keep going with it at this point. They don't see that they're going to go back. So what do we do? One of the big problems with these changes is all 5 of them did something different. The biggest proponent about the Dewey is that it's universal. It's used in 95 U.S. libraries. Over 100 countries worldwide use the Dewey Decimal System, and it's published in over 50 languages. When you have something like this, you know you can go anywhere and find what you need. The libraries that we talked about are all doing something different. I don't have an answer, but I have this quote that I found from R.K. Black that about what our job is as librarians. And I felt like it was important. Libraries must have the objective of saving the time of the reader. The entire journey of librarianship is about devising, designing, and developing methods, systems of organization, and dissemination of information to provide the best service to the readers in the most efficient, accurate, and effective manner, and saving the reader's time. All the libraries I talked about try to do this. Whether it's the way to go for the future is something we still need to watch and see. And that's all I got. Thanks very much.